Hello, everyone. Welcome to Poetry at Tech. We're glad you're here. I hope you and yours are all well and thriving where you are. I'm Travis Denton, the Associate Director of Poetry at Tech, and tonight in our virtual space, we're glad to welcome friends from many parts of the country and the world. Now, that couldn't happen if we were just all in the Crest Auditorium, so we're glad. That's one good thing that the pandemic has done for us. It's actually brought a lot of us together here in this virtual space, but I'm always excited. I get excited just about this time of the year as, well, there's the hint of what just might be a cool breeze that moves into Atlanta, just a hint of that. And there's something different about the light. And that means that it's time for a new season of Poetry at Tech. And I'm especially excited tonight, given that this evening officially marks 20 seasons of Poetry at Tech. That's right, 20 seasons. Someone pointed out to me earlier today that, well, I didn't have any gray in my beard when I started at Poetry at Tech. And I think that's true, but that's another story altogether. But it's an interesting tale as to how we got here at Poetry at Tech. Some might even call it poetic irony, and I think I might have coined that phrase. We'll have to look it up. But around the year 2000, two Georgia Tech graduates, unbeknownst to one another, approached Georgia Tech with this crazy idea that Georgia Tech needed a world-class poetry program. And well, that idea turned out not to be so crazy. Henry C. Bourne and Bruce McEver established endowments that, along with gifts from our ongoing supporters, keep us going all these years later. Bourne saw Robert Frost read at MIT during his time there, and he called it a life-changing experience. That's what made him love poetry. That's what made Dr. Bourne love poetry. And Bruce McEver, well, he fell in love with poetry during his time as a student at Georgia Tech, having taken poetry classes that made him love the craft. And tonight we also have to thank the Poetry Foundation for their generous support of our program and this new season of Poetry at Tech. And tonight I'm happy to welcome acclaimed poets Chen Chen and Kenneth Knoespel, a name that many of you will recognize from right here at Georgia Tech. But here's a hint. Ken was instrumental in the founding and creation of Poetry at Tech, along with Georgia Tech President Emeritus Wayne Clough and poet Thomas Lux. I hope Ken might say a little bit more about that in just a bit. But on the other hand, I have some not so good news. Late this afternoon, Elizabeth Acevedo had to cancel due to an illness. She's okay. She's okay, so nobody panic. But she's feeling rough and unable to read. But in just a bit, Illy and I will each share a favorite of Elizabeth's poems. And we'll be sure to get Elizabeth here at Poetry at Tech. We'll get her back here before too long. But let's all wish Elizabeth well. Thanks again for joining us tonight. Following the reading, stick around for just a minute. I won't keep you too long, but I want to share with you what's coming up at Poetry at Tech this fall, our free poetry workshops and such. But to get us started, Ely and I want to share one of our favorite poems by Elizabeth Acevedo. And I got to tell you, it was tough for me, at least, to narrow down just one poem to read of Elizabeth. And might I tell you, Elizabeth has such a wonderful presence and such a voice in poetry that I'm going to do my best to do her poem, Ode to the Head Nod, justice. Here's Ode to the Head Nod. The slight angling up of the forehead, neck extension, quick jut of chin, meeting the stranger's eyes, a gilded curtsy to the sun-fill in another, in yourself, kind of respect. In an early version, the copy editor deleted the word head from the title. Copy editor says it's implied. The copy editor means well. The copy editor means she is only fluent in one language of gestures. I do not explain. Feel sad for her. Limited understanding of greetings, and maybe this is why my acknowledgments are so long. Didn't we learn this early? To look at white spaces and find the color. Thank God. Oh, thank God for you are here. Elia, what poem did you choose?
Certainly are already planning to bring her very soon to Georgia Tech. She's an amazing poet. Um, I show the first page from her novel in verse, Poetex, simply because I read it, in a bookstore, and I was kind of quite amazed when I opened the book on the first page to see how she's able to combine the wide scope, the novelistic, epic scope of the narrative in her work with a nuanced lyric language. So I want to share that nuanced attention to detail, lyricism in the beginning of her book. Harlem is opening its eyes to September. I scope out this black I have always called at home. Watch the old church ladies, chancletas flapping against the pavement, their mouths letting loose a train of violent Spanish. As they spread, he said, she said, Pipapota, from down the block, as he opens the fire hydrant, so the little kids have a sprinkler to run through. Listen to the hunting caps with bachata blaring from the open windows, complete with basketballs echoing from a little park. So with this lyrical, beautiful language, she opens the window on the whole world of her novel, Poetex, which I hope you guys are able to get. With that in mind, let me turn the page and introduce our first reader tonight, Kenneth Knoespel. At Georgia Tech, one gets to work with some pretty fascinating people. In addition to being a poet and to helping to start Poetry Attack nearly 20 years ago, Kenneth studied and published a manuscript of Sir Isaac Newton and has done research on things as different as ice moons of the planet Saturn, comparative literature, engineering, various religious traditions, and, wait for it, astrobiology. Here at Tech, he was the first McEver Professor of Engineering and Liberal Arts. He received a PhD from Complete at the University of Chicago and also received an honorary degree from the University of Umeå in Sweden. But friends, I'm here to talk about his poetry. What is the relationship between poetry and memory? Poets have been asking themselves this question for quite a long time. Kenneth answered through the vivid images, making the world into watercolors for memory's landscapes. Take, for instance, this. You sit on the milk platform, rubbing boots in your green coat, with paw prints from the cat, which you carried from the roadside, blue handkerchief on your head. You hold your breath, so the leaves don't fall. Listen to it again, that final couplet. You hold your breath, so the leaves don't fall. It gives language a power over what might or might not happen, making a poem a kind of a spell. A spell for what, you might ask? For defined time, if only for a moment. The secret wish of all poetry, Charlie Simic says, is to stop time. Kenneth looks at the images of our world and shows us what time has done. For example, quote, just look what summer has done. Farm maples with no name stickers, squash that blush in their freckles, pumpkins like cannonballs, unsocketed carrots embarrassed by the daylight, embarrassed by the daylight. Isn't that nice? In a poem about summer, he seems to approach poetry as a kind of imagistic echoing of time. Even when the poem is swimming in a Baltic Sea, in a different example, he says, quote, the waves become 1,000 tickling clocks, measuring watch movements, dials and faces, measuring in ears, breaking waves. But there are times when memories aren't in need of pretty images, when they explode into the unknown, into a silence. Usually, that happens in an elegy, as the poet speaks to the dead. And here's the final evidence that I'll give you from his work. Quote, my father in a cardboard box, our only carry on. Memories no airport security X-ray tunnel could detect. Yet, I wanted to leave the ashes above the conquerors, relinquere. Bonus for all to see, holy object bringing quiet for a moment with the departure gates, boarding announced. All quiet, hairspray, t-shirts, backpacks, tires, briefcases, cowboy boots and stiletto heels, flip-flops and loafers, all quiet. Flowered shirts, back from Bahamas, quiet. Woolen ankles, canes and vultures courted the carts, quiet. The lady pushing the stroller of Church Juana, quiet. Instead, we were a grief, moving down the escalator in a single file with the weight of the staff of memory, as if we carried a mystery we did not understand. Indeed, perhaps, what poetry is in the end is what allows us to do, to carry a mystery we do not understand. Please give Kenneth Knoespel a very warm welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm so pleased to be here this evening and can only thank Ilya Kaminsky and Travis Denton for making this possible. Ilya's comments on my poems make me blush and certainly invite me to continue sharing them with you. Being here this evening also allows me to recognize what Travis has already noted, that we are inaugurating the 20th year of Poetry at Tech. As Travis said, I was fortunate to participate in founding Poetry at Tech and can only underscore that we are here because of the generosity of Henry and Margaret Bourne, Bruce McEver, and the support of many others. Wayne Clough, Tech's former president, has often said with more than a twinkle in his eye that Poetry at Tech reinforced his selection as secretary of the Smithsonian Institute. His recognition of Poetry at Tech in his new book, The Technological University Reimagined, is also a witness to the role played by Poetry at Tech in the ongoing development of this institution. But finally, it is Tom Lux and Ilya Kaminsky and Travis Denton whose work and commitment continue to build the national and international reputation of Poetry at Tech that I want to recognize and personally thank them for. This evening, I'm also pleased to celebrate voices. Voices that remind us how poetry continues to shape our understanding of ourselves as a nation of immigrants. I begin with several poems that register my own witness of a family that immigrated to Wisconsin from Germany in 1924. I learned from an early age that I lived in a Zwischenlandschaft, a landscape in between, a landscape in between that has only expanded in the times I have lived in Sweden or Russia. There is a sense in which I continue to be an immigrant, someone in continuous immigration intensified by language. Evidence of landing in America. The camera could see they were no longer in the Saxon town with smokestacks on die Fleise. They photographed their ephemeral passing like refugee scientists, drawing themselves from light itself, images turned upside down in the accordion passage of the bellows, lowered like a drawbridge that comprehended their shadows to give witness that they really were in America, Wisconsin. On the black pages of family albums, the white edges of the photos open themselves to each other. One stands out. The family, all 12, on the grassy banks of the Sheboygan River, gunny sacks filled with grapes, and before them, close to the edge, my uncle stoops to adjust a tripod. He is taking a picture of the scene being photographed, as if a single image would not be enough, as if double proof were needed to affirm their presence, that landing in America didn't happen just once, but unfolded with the click of the press trigger, frames winding into the spool of advancing film. Shooting into the garden. My grandfather taught me to shoot the single bolt 22 when I was a boy. We riddled my grandmother's wash post with bullets until it crumpled. I shot chipmunks, gophers, rabbits, threats to his garden. He'd rest the barrel on the crook of the apple tree. I still see his eyes squinting to line the notched rear sight with the pin on the muzzle. I would hold my breath as I squeezed the trigger. On his deathbed, he asked if his cancer grew from what he had killed in the garden. I still see our shooting tree and wonder what he really saw as he sighted the barrel into the cabbage and melons, calling from his own memories of 4 years in trenches on the Western Front. The curtain. I followed the railing into the cellar and with a scrape pulled the curtain aside that covered my grandfather's tools just to glimpse the stained jars, the nails, paint, putty, oil, screws, and washers. Upstairs, in the kitchen, voices spoke of the Russian zone as they wrapped vitamins, coffee, chocolate, socks, stockings in brown paper. Their stories asked about family far beyond what any radio could fathom. How often I climbed the cellar steps, wondering about the relatives who'd unwrap their kitchen work. The stories enacted a ritual I didn't understand and led me to the cellar as if I waited for a sign among the jars behind the curtain that would reveal the mystery of the crossing to America and the faces left on the other side. Now I know the letters and packages sent in return showed that we too were another side. I have letters, even those edged in black ink, bearing news of family death. Photos of the house, Hinton Bahnhofstrasse 21, where my mother was born. A carved pencil box with my name burned on the top, sent to remind me of the Heimat beyond my name. I said that my experience was very much one of living in an in-between landscape. This world broadened when I discovered voices that I could tune by listening to shortwave radios, opening the bandwidth. Each time I pulled the cords of the unfolding steps to hot attics, hunting abandoned console radios, bandwidths opened. How many receivers and black funnel speakers must I have unscrewed from their wooden sarcophagi to array on my bedroom shelf? When the forest of tubes glowed, the dial was a compass needled to the names under the yellowing plastic. Paris, Berlin, London, Rome, Moscow, Warsaw, Prague, like the sweep of playing cards. I found frequencies by chance. Amateur radio bands where voices hunted one another. Calling CQ, CQ calling CQ. This is JR4XT4 Lafayette. Calling CQ, calling CQ. Anyone there? Come in, please. Then the radio hiss. Cracked by a voice in Fresno. I read you, JRXT4. I wanted to come in too. Check my signal's strength as other voices drifted in the garbled distortion of encrypted vowels, single sideband that I could resolve into simple conversation by the meticulous tuning. I fished wavelengths, signaled, swelled, and dimmed to the sway of the copper wire aerial outside my window. I cast my voice like a ventriloquist into the wavelengths. I disappeared into the filaments of tubes that burned orange in their sockets and found my way through the resistors and capacitors as I swept the bands. I listened beyond the voices, wandered the hissing as if it were the ur consonant undulating between frequencies, my tuning waiting for words, and I knew the earth itself was listening. I grew up along the coast of Lake Michigan in Wisconsin and became fascinated by trying to make out the shore on the other side. Years of walking on the lakefront in all weather became a continuous test of how far one might actually see. Although I never accomplished seeing across Lake Michigan, it transported me to Sweden, where I worked as a translator and taught English at the University of Uppsala as a foreign lecturer. I worked closely with the Swedish poet and critic Lars Bäckström, who taught me to open landscapes that otherwise were as invisible as the other shore of Lake Michigan. To Lars Beckstrom, I think of you as I push off on my bike, how you love to swim. Your stooping body, the second before you dove from the rocks into the cold swells on Öland's west coast. You showed me how to ride through Uppsala, the crossing gates before the tracks, how to navigate town and gown, how to make my way the length of Sweden that you compared to your long body. You taught me to translate poems and question the easy arrogance of academics. You gave me Swedish and an air to hear beyond English. You called it new simplicity, a way of entering the world of things, not abstractions. You said we should not hide ourselves in words. You wanted to touch places close to the skin between us all. Hitting you at the railroad crossing, the car threw you from your bike. The concussion, then stroke, made us use many languages to reach you. Some written on yellow pads passed between us, and others spoken by touch. In my years in Uppsala that really do continue to today, I soon noticed a small angel on the very top of the Uppsala Cathedral, and I imagined the angel following me in Uppsala as I made my way through the streets on my bicycle. The angel became an intimate presence over the many years I worked in Sweden. I've adopted at this point the angel and flown with, I'm going to say him so many times across the Atlantic, that he has left his perch on the church roof and become my guardian angel. Reading with my guardian angel. My angel shadows me. Think for an instant, the angel in the black coat watching the city from the roof of the Mercedes skyscraper in Wings of Desire. Remember how he walked invisible in the Berlin library listening to silent voices. He fell in love with their thoughts. And I've fallen in love with my angel. We wink at each other in disbelief, amazed we work so well together. But this is no circus fantasy. My angel, no trapeze artist in tights, far more mundane, down to earth. We've learned to listen from the edges, hunched, shoulder to shoulder. We work the margins. Bet you even seen us poking in the stubble in orange vests, like members of a cleanup crew delivered in a van. We laugh, call each other archaeologists who piece together lost worlds from the endless shelves of libraries. We've walked miles in the margins of books, watching for words hiding in the shoulders, waiting for the sharp nail at the end of our stick. Two simple poems from Finland return to the borders that I continue to navigate. The poems were written for my friend Annika Beckstrom, whose lifetime of work as a translator and writer has shaped my work in Russia. 2 poems from Finland for Annika. I do not remember the last time I plunged into the cold water from the sauna's stinging steam, but now the embrace of Niukala folds me into herself like a blanket. I see the long line of the horizon, but I can't see the Russian border 2 miles from here in the forest. I have crossed many borders and know when they are close. I swim in water that registers the temperature of time. I cannot count the waves, only slip beneath them. Light shivers here, and birch leaves sway without touching my skin. 2. We walk, speaking of friends, on a road cut through birch. We see them, their faces, behind our eyes. In silence we speak, but hear their voices. They remind ourselves who remains. In the crackle of the gravel underfoot, we scan the forests lost and found, and find silhouettes in the rush of leaves, like the shapes seen through a photo negative, held in our hand against the light, where the slightest turn of the film fuses a half shade with memory and carries an instant of recognition and the wonder of how we have come so far to find them with us still. I'm going to close with a poem that allows us to return to Wisconsin, to the Wisconsin shore where my family immigrated, and to the cemetery where my family is buried. It takes me back to the first poem I read this evening and reminds me how we all are continually landing in America. Carrying my father's ashes to the north, the grave diggers found the plot with their backhoe through the snow, said it would be hard ground to open for the cold. The family graves near the lake, north of Milwaukee, they were waiting for us. No solemn hearse, no long drive up to cross the snow line. Instead, the planes, quick thud, and we're there. My father in a cardboard box, our only carry-on. Memories no airport security X-ray tunnel could detect. I wanted to lift the ashes above the concourse, a reliquary, bones for all to see, holy object bringing quiet for a moment to the departure gates, boarding announcements, all quiet, hairspray, t-shirts, backpacks, ties, briefcases, cowboy boots, stiletto heels, flip-flops, loafers, all quiet, flowered shirts back from the Bahamas, quiet, swollen ankles, canes and walkers, courtesy carts, quiet, the lady pushing the stroller with the chihuahua, quiet. Instead, we were grief, moving down the escalator in single file with the stuff of memory, as if we carried a mystery we did not understand. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Ken, that was absolutely amazing. And Ilya Kavinsky is coming up to introduce Chen Chen. Give us just a moment. I think Ilya might be having a technical difficulty on his end. I think so. This is the part of the program where we like to say talk amongst yourselves, but Ilya should be back in just a moment. But Chen, welcome to Poetry at Tech. It's absolutely wonderful to have you.
I'm so glad to be here.
How are things where you are? So you're in Boston right now.
Yes. Yeah, it's very rainy at the moment.
Okay. How's poetry writing been going for you?
It's been going all right. I've been doing edits mainly on this next book.
Yeah, Anna, are you able to see me?
Oh, now we have Amelia back. Wonderful.
Yeah, my I didn't just reconnected in the middle of Kant's last poem about the ashes. I'm sorry, I just got back.
Well, it's good to see your face. These sorts of things happen.
Poem about the ashes, though, it's such a powerful poem, Kant. Ariana, can I begin?
Yes, you're on.
Hello? Okay, perfect. Well, it's really my pleasure and honor to introduce Chen Chen. But before I do, I just want to thank Kenneth Knoespel for everything he has done over the years for Poetry Attack and for this beautiful video. Chen Chen is the author of When I Grow Up, I Want to Be a List of Future Possibilities, which was long listed for the National Book Award. His poetry had received many other awards, including NEA Grant, Tom Gunn Award, 2 Pushcart Prizes, and other honors. His second book of poetry, Your Emergency Contact Has Experienced an Emergency, is forthcoming from VOA Editions, number 122. Very exciting. He teaches as a poet at Brandeis University, a core faculty member at New England College, MFA program. Writing about Chen Chen's work, the Pulitzer Prize winner Jacob Brown says, quote, he is a poet of Whitman's multitudes and of Langston Hughes' blues, of Dickens' so-called No Fire Can Warm Me, and Michael Palmer's comic interrogation. What unifies this, Jacob Brown says, is a voice desperate to believe that within every one of life's sadnesses there is also hope, meaning, and, if we are willing to laugh at ourselves, humor. Okay, I think it's a really interesting perspective, both on Chen's work and a useful window into contemporary American poetry. I mean, shouldn't we expect from every poet to do that? Well, a poet who is able to do what just at weddings you see people cry, or you go to a funeral, you're amazed that somebody is laughing in the middle of a funeral. But how do you do it in the middle of a poem? How do you combine those completely opposite emotions and create something new, something third? Don't we, after all, reading William Shakespeare, marvel at how there is a king writing out desperate speech in one passage, and right next to it, there is a fool making a joke. So how do you do that? Well, here's how Chen Chen is doing it, quote, we would be so terribly happy. Our work would be simple. Our kingdom would rhyme with us. Chen is excellent at this combination of high and low styles. But he goes even further. Before we know it, the fun ride becomes a conversation about metaphysics, about theology. And here, allow me to give you a slightly longer example. Quote, You should know that although I miraculously agreed to attend Bible camp one summer, my devoutly pragmatic parents signed me up because the camp was free. I don't, and have never believed in you. Yet, here I am, sitting up in bed, thinking about death and needing to talk to someone who reportedly. That's the inside story. I know, though, that there are believers who don't believe out of fear solely. They actually love you. They reach out and receive your touch, like a friend, like a boyfriend, like the boy beside me, overheating, reeking of sweat, and still somehow asleep. I wish I could feel your warmth as easily as I feel his. But I don't feel fear. I hear fear telling me I am a body, that is all. And the boy I love is a body, and bodies die. What I love about it is how it begins with fun, and then there is a metaphysical moment of being alone with God who may or may not exist. And then there is this tenderness toward the beloved. And then there is the wisdom of how we live in bodies. What do we do with the fact that bodies end? In addition to this, I would encourage you to pay attention to Chen's music. Listen, for example, to the following quote. I am rusty young in a rumored ear. I am an Arctic attic, calm, amble, an ampersand in a slippery polar collateral. I am not the heterosexual neat freak my mother raised me to be. I'm interested in how the music and the tone and the lines go hand in hand, how the tone developed through the sound of the poem. Navigation. After all, friends, true poetry is not about an event. It is an event. And of course, there is a deep relationship with other poets in the tradition in Chen Chen's work, such as Christopher Smart, where Christopher Smart's When I Consider My Cat Jeffrey suddenly becomes For I Shall Consider My Boyfriend Jeffrey. You of course will find other poets as well, such as Frank O'Hara. He changes the poet's work, and he himself is changed. For example, the poet says, "Oh, sorry, hello, are you on your way to work too? I was just taken aback by how you also have a briefcase and a small and brown. I was stating by how you seem secretly to love everything. Are you my new co-worker? Oh, I see. No, still good to meet you. I'm think well, it is good to meet people. Maybe beyond briefcases, we have some things in common, like jelly beans. I'm afraid of death. It's a lot of fun to read his poems aloud. I just can't stop. So here, friends, let's give a warm welcome to Chen Chen, who is, without any doubt, in addition to being my favorite poet, is one of the most daring and funny and wise and talented poets of his generation. Chen Chen.
Oh my God. Ilya, thank you for that amazing, amazing introduction. Can you all hear me okay? Is that all right? Yeah? Okay. I want to start with well, first saying thank you so much for inviting me here. It's such a great honor to be reading with Ken tonight. Thank you to Ilya and Travis, Sanda. I want to start with this poem. I'll put a link to it in the chat, by the great Russian poet Osip Mandelstam. They have a link to it, and this is a translation by Christian Wyman. And the poem is called The Necklace. Take from my palms, for joy and ease, a little honey, a little sun, that we may obey Persephone's bees. You can't untie a boat unmoored, fur-shod shadows can't be heard, nor terror in this life mastered. Love, what's left for us, of us, is this living remnant, loving revenant, brief kiss, like a bee flying, completed, dying hiveless, to find in the forest's heart a home, night's never-ending hum, thriving on meadow-sweet, mint, and thyme. Take for all that is good, for all that is gone, that it may lie rough and real against your collarbone, this string of bees that once turned honey to sun. So much. And then I prepared this Google Doc with my poems in case you want to follow along. I'm going to be reading entirely from the new book that's going to come out next year. Just put that link chat box. All right. So in this book, I have a number of poems that share this kind of title, The School of. I was thinking about what we are instructed by and how we learn. So there's a poem called The School of Joy. There's a poem called The School of Logic. And this is called The School of Australia. It's based on this experience I had actually interviewing my father in college for this sociology class. And I asked him questions that I hadn't ever really asked him before about us coming to the United States, about our immigration experience. I was very, very young. I was 3, almost 4 when we came to the States. So I really don't have a lot of memories of my own of that time. And so one of the things I learned when I asked him about it was that he had thought about going to other countries as well, and one of them being Australia. And I had never known that my whole life until I asked him about it. So this poem is kind of an absurdist take on that. The School of Australia. Your emergency contact has called to quit. Your backup plan has backed away. Your boyfriend has joined a boy band named All Your Former Boyfriends and Sarah McLachlan. In the ugly teapot, uglier luggage section of your local Dillard's, you would like to scream. Meanwhile, your father has decided to pursue his original dream and move to Australia, the brochure version he fell for in college. In Australia, he will study beach studies, and his Western name, Tony, will finally catch on. Tony, the Australians will say, where have they been hiding you? And Tony will say, I never imagined I'd be doing way better than my son. And on his way home from the school of the beach, its shells and endless glitter, Tony will toss out a dog-eared copy of the manual he received upon arriving in America. How to have deeply sorrowful exchanges with your son about your immigrant hardships. How to make him understand he must become a neurosurgeon, at least a dentist. The manual will go on to a second career titling academic papers. Australia will be renamed Tony's Son, Get Your Shit Together. TSGYST will call to say, but remember, you're already a glittery stretch of dream. Your own emergency, Tony. This next piece is a little longer. It started out, I was really having a lot of trouble writing. last year, really anything, and I turned to writing some essays and also this longer prose piece, which I do think of as a poem, ultimately, a longer prose poem. But it started out because a friend of mine was editing a flash fiction folio for Asian American Writers Workshop and asked me if I had any stories. And it had been so long since I'd written any fiction. But this was what happened, and I ended up writing about the pandemic. So this is based on my experiences last summer. Summer. The sunflowers fall right along with their mason jar in the middle of the night. Their heads too gloriously full of early July. How they seem to know everything except the virus, the crown it wears, all the unglory it craves, receives. At Williams-Sonoma the other day, a sales associate named Carol welcomes the two of us to a new touchless shopping experience. It's a capacious Williams-Sonoma at the Natick Mall, and we're impressed by how Carol's voice fills the entire store. Her cheery script a lingering chime in our ears. We're here after our usual supermarket trip, curious how the mall is reopening. And Carol, I know she's paid to sound happy about this situation, as she's paid to ooze happiness about every Le Creuset skillet, kettle, cassoulet. But she sounds far too happy. Something wakes the dog. His barking like fistfuls of sunlight, like the sun set on fire. I sit up at once, see what he can't, the sunflowers, the jar on the carpet. You groan, slowly raise your right hand, the only part capable of any semblance of awake. You caress the dog's head, his back. You soften the fright away with syllable after syllable of your hand. I wave to Carol as though sending her some love, though mostly it's concern. She smiles and smiles as though the smile has kidnapped her, as though her name isn't actually Carol, as though Williams-Sonoma has given her that name, taken all her vocabulary, except smiling and, how may I assist you? I keep seeing it in slow motion, though I didn't actually see their falling. The sunflowers, overcome with true dizzying delight, with themselves. I miss seeing your delight when touching pots and pans and potato mashers, the vast array of Le Creuset. That afternoon with one autumnally orange Dutch oven, your face as you touched that fire. Your face whenever you just have to touch the fabric of every shirt that catches your eye in H&M, tell me exactly how it feels. Then ask me to touch it, describe it myself. So soft, yes, but in what way? Like a cloud, about to burst. I picture Carol with sunflowers. In a Williams-Sonoma approved apartment, Carol is allowed one sunflower, one real happiness she can put in her own jar. Your hand doesn't touch even the shirts now, though you read somewhere fabrics are okay, the virus can't live on them, or not for long, or what are the facts today? Or perhaps Carol, when she's not a grinning retail robot, is the patron saint, sunflowers, the pricey cookware, her day job. I miss museums, walking around with you, coming across an exhibit that exclaims, touch me, watching your fingers revel in being fingers on a wacky new surface, then kissing you hard while that 12-foot-tall papier-mâché duck watches, jealous. Let there be a patron saint of making impossible birds, very annoyed. July 7th, 2020. Over 3 million confirmed cases in the US, over 15,000 in critical condition, over 133,000 dead, over 500,000 dead globally. Many of the things I miss, pretty silly, pretty and silly. I miss them deeply. And my mother, who lives only 10 minutes away by car but hasn't left the house in months, has insisted I not leave mine unless absolutely necessary. My mother, already sick, chronically sick in 3 different ways. She says not to send anything, how I want to send her all the sunflowers. Carol, may assist me now. If you are indeed the holy rep of sunflowers, Carol, please make row after row flicker up in the night in the warry field of my mother's head. Help her sleep, and dream only of glowing, petal-soft things. Surely there is a patron saint of touch, yes, at the moment is struggling. Unlike the brand new patron saint of branded touchless experiences whose business has only been expanding, booming, like a dog's 3 a.m. holler. I miss walking through a museum by myself, that sweet, surrounded by art, aloneness, solitude enhanced, perfected, by unwearable pantsuits, hairy suitcases. I think it's what any artist hopes for, not only to be remembered, but to be company. Perhaps Carol really is overcome with joy, thrilled like us to be out of the apartment, away from her relentlessly beautiful dog, cat, kid, even when it means repeating the same couple of lines, a sort of depressing jingle, and the mask all day. Still she's out and she's caroling about the latest sale on summer grilling essentials to people who, perhaps she's glad for it, don't know her. They fell, you ask, in the morning, surprised to see the sunflowers strewn on the carpet. Yes, I say, and explain how that led to the dog barking. I add something about being too tired to pick them up, but really I liked the way they looked on the carpet, like golden messages from some other, less exhausting place. You pick the sunflowers up, return them to their jar after refilling it with fresh tap water. You climb back in bed and touch my face. You climb back in bed to touch my face. You wrap your arms around me, and it's like you're the patron saint of touch, as well as soft sunlight and soothed dogs. Or you must be the earthly representative of divine holding. Or you're both, and also a boy, like me, holding on. So this next one is in that School of series. This is called The School of You. Suppose you live a long life, full of blueberries and jade blazers, and dreams of ice skating in the nude, and ice skating in the nude, so briskly frisky, a life longer than you plan to live to. You, who was told at 13 to die, that you would soon, a silly faggot, and not even a white one, just a brief filth, not worth the spit to wipe away. At 13 you knew you wouldn't last forever. Still you were given little reason to believe you might last another decade, another. How already you are supposed to be not. And yes, I am talking self, saying suppose otherwise. Suppose a life so long and gorgeously silly, viewers will complain about everything left out from your biopic, which will star an actor so handsome, every audience member will gasp in unison upon first seeing him on screen. But despite that, yes, the fans will cry, not enough about that time he robbed a creperie, not enough about his years spent painting hippos, never enough about how that involved both paintings of and paintings on hippos, and how long it took him to realize he was not very good at painting, then realizing finally that it didn't matter, so long as his very handsome fingers spent all those many years dreaming with paint. And why do only successes get to be smashing? Why not a smashing failure? Yes, I'm talking to myself as though it is my birthday, and this is my gift, telling myself what I was never told. Suppose in one part of your still 3-hour-long biopic, it is your 88th birthday. All day you exclaim, I'm 88. At your birthday, I'm 88. To every friend and fellow 80-something silly faggot. You're wearing someone's worst nightmare, and you are who wore it best. And then the cake, not 88 candles. It's still a ridiculous number. Flames and flames. Suppose you blow them out, wishing for more blazing, more you. Suppose you know already there will be. I'm just realizing now that 88, so 8 is a really auspicious, lucky number in Chinese culture. It just occurred to me. I must have picked that number for a reason. But yeah, it's considered so lucky. People will like pay to have 8s, their license plates or their phone numbers. 88 is a very auspicious age. And the last poem that I'll read is called Winter. And this I wrote, I think in 2016, just to give you a sense of maybe the political context of this. Winter. Like soon after the inauguration. Winter. Big smelly bowel movements this blue January morning. From the living room TV, a commercial from our TV company. We're the fastest, the only, meaning love us above all others. What makes poop more pungent certain days? Question for science. From the living room TV, the powerful sight law, bark order, meaning love us or else. Years ago, a teacher said never to use the word poop in a poem. Today, the icy kiss of the toilet seat wakes me up. Today, I poop, while my boyfriend shouts from the living room, "Did you hear that?" Meaning the atomic scientists who say we are now 2.5 minutes to midnight. But still I marvel whenever poop comes out as one true platonic tube. I am trying to be marvelous and to make my enemies throw up. I mean, if you shower with soap and eat well, maintaining consistent gastrointestinal health, you should be ready for a rim job or other forms of anal play. My boyfriend and I are not. From the TV, a white supremacist cites science, barks, 2 sides to every. I mean, up the throat, out the mouth, the fastest, the only way the powerful will let go of their shit. I mean, my boyfriend and I are not into scat, but if you are, I hope your beloved produces the most fragrant, citrusy shit. I mean, is scat more or less literary than poop? I mean, one winter night, I got sick, pooped the bed, and he just got up with me, helped strip the sheets, carry it all to the washer. I kept saying, "I'm so sorry," shivering, I'm sorry. But he said, "What?" "Hey, I love you." Thank you.
Chen, Ken, that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you both for that. And the way that we like to end readings here at Poetry at Tech, we like to end in gratitude and just thank you both, Chen. Thanks, Ken. And I have to tell you that you both left me wanting to go write poems. And that's the highest praise I can give another poet. You made me want to go write poems and be creative. So I thank you so much for that. And I many others who were with us tonight share the same sentiment as well. Ilya, did you want to?
I just want to thank both poets for being with us today and for these very humane poems that are very lyrical as well. And I want to thank our audience for being here today and our friends. Bruce McEver, I believe, is here today, and we're very grateful to him for helping Poetry Attack for all those years. And we are very grateful to Georgia Attack and to LMC as well.
Absolutely. Ilya, aren't we so lucky to have so much support at Georgia Tech? And I remember there were days back when even, when people heard about poetry at Tech, they thought that the idea of poetry at Tech was an oxymoron. That lasted a little while. And now when people hear poetry at Tech, they think, oh, yeah, of course. Absolutely. That's the home of poetry. And well, we have some other thanks as well. I want to thank our team Poetry at Tech. I want to thank our squad. None of this could happen without Skanda Prasad, who is our website and technology wizard. Thank you so much, Skanda. And Caden Ho, who makes us look so good out in public with her wonderful designs of our posters and such. So thank you so much. And of course, I want to thank the Poetry Foundation as well for their support of the Poetry at Tech program. I really appreciate that. And I want to thank the support of our donors. And as Ilya, as you mentioned, Bruce McEver, thanks so much, and the family of Margaret and Henry C. Bourne. Thank you for not only keeping the lights on, but for keeping us growing. A couple of things that are coming up. I'm excited to share with you. October 21st is going to be our next poetry event, and that's in partnership with the Poetry Foundation and the Bremen Jewish Museum of Atlanta. And we'll be featuring Eleanor Wilner, Erica Meitner, and Afa Michael Weaver. So join us on October 21st and check your email for more information on the event. Also, Chen is going to be back with us for a free workshop on October 2nd, and more information is going to be up on the website very soon, and you're all welcome to join. As always, it's a free event. And one thing I want to say too is thanks to technology, we've had folks here tonight from Bonn, Germany, Nigeria, Australia, Bahrain, England, Mexico, and Huntsville, Alabama, North Carolina, San Diego, Los Angeles, and the list goes on. And I really appreciate everyone being here. Be sure and check out the Poetry Tech website, poetry.gatech.edu, for more updates. Everyone, take care and stay in touch.